Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. If you are new to this channel, what I do on here is I talk about different esoteric research subjects, such as Freemasonry, Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, archangels, you name it. We talk about it on here. In this video, I just wanted to do a very short reading from The Middle Pillar by Israel Regardie. It's a really good book, and I've actually never read it all the way through, and I've been looking back at bits and pieces of it because I've used it as a reference material quite a few times. And there's actually a lot of good information in here. So we're going to do some review. I figured hi Bella. I figured lately it's been a good time to kind of go back and do a lot of review and kind of establish the groundwork once again before I continue, getting into my own workings and such. So I've made a video before called The Dangers of the LBRP, or the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. It's definitely, I think, a video to go. It's worth going and checking out the video. Obviously in the video, those are just some of my insights and some of my experiences that I've had from using the ritual over the years. And a lot of the times when I was using it, I wasn't always using it from the healthiest space. If you use the LBRP simply as a tool, it's more than just a tool of trying to banish forces. It's much more than that. It uses the elements to kind of separate aspects of yourself, and it brings them forth in front of you. It's removing certain aspects of yourself for you to face them, not only within yourself, but also externally in your environment. And you'll have to work on those different things. So it's not that you're just pushing things away, it's that you're externalizing forces from within, so you can then work with these different alchemical components, and then you can kind of get to know yourself better, work on getting yourself in better alignment with your higher self, or your true will, ultimate source, however you want to look at it. So yeah, the LBRP, or the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, it can definitely be used as a tool or something to almost kind of, a lot of people think it's to just reject negative energies, or that it's going to somehow, save you from a certain situation or help bypass something. But that's not really how it works. Sometimes it can actually cause a lot of things to come to the forefront. As I was just saying, when you project those aspects of yourself out in front of you, then you're having to face certain aspects of yourself. And if it's, sometimes they are aspects of the self which have to be banished, or they have to be worked through completely in order to understand that was never a part of your true self to begin with in the first place. So let's get into chapter 9 from this book. We're going to get into pentagram sciences a little bit. We're going to talk just a little bit about the pentagram and some basics about the LBRP, Qabalistic cross, things of that nature. So we're going to go really back to basics in this video, and I'll probably make a longer video or a video series on the pentagram as a whole, and the different sciences and nuances that go into, the geometry of the pentagram in general. So I'm just going to start on this chapter and just read through it, and I will make my own, commentary as I go through. I'll have my own inputs and things to say. So let's get into it. The Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, sometimes called the LBRP, is one of the most important magical tools that the ceremonial magician has at his disposal. The following rendition is only slightly different from the one presented in chapter 3. It is the version that we prefer to use. So this is a Qabalistic cross, and it must differ a little bit from the other version that they're talking about in this book. And before I go on in this video, I don't think I will be able to stop this video. No, if I try to stop the video and look at my notes, it's going to exit everything out. But I've been watching a video from a lady lately, and I can't remember where I got the name from, if it was from one of my YouTube subscribers or if it was somebody else I was talking to, but something along the lines of Ashayana is her name, Deanne, if maybe that sounds familiar. Ashayna, something like that. Deane, something along those lines. But she has a lot of interesting perspectives when it comes to different spiritual topics, and she talks about Death Star Merkaba mechanics, and I've never really heard of that terminology before. She even talks about Metatron being like a demon and stuff, so it's totally different viewpoints. Like, even gets into Thoth being like a darker entity that's like, you know, here to like manipulate stuff. So she talks about a spirituality, a type of spirituality and information. She has all these graphs that she channels from these beings called the Guardians. So if that's something that any of you know anything about, and would like to comment, I would like to learn more. I haven't watched the whole video. The video that I found of hers, it's an interview that's like 6 hours long or something crazy like that. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. That's just a side note I wanted to say for now. So a lot of the spiritual information that she talks about kind of takes everything that, you know, I've studied and a lot of other people teach and kind of flips all of that on its head, flips it upside down. So before, you know, I always take everything with a grain of salt that different spiritual teachers have to say. And I've been trying to just kind of follow my own intuition instead of, you know, ever trying to like completely follow one teacher or a quote unquote guru. I don't know like too many like genuine, actually what I would call gurus. And I don't think if somebody's like a real teacher, you know, that's not really a title they're even going to probably want to associate with for the most part, if they're legitimate, you know. So, but anyway, yeah, that lady, that Ashayana, or however you say her name, she has some really interesting takes on things, and it's definitely worth looking into. Probably it seems like really detailed information, but I just don't know how much of it's authentic or how much of it's real, you know. It's a lot of that kind of, even among the New Age community, it's pretty alternative thinking, and it's still kind of that starseed kind of scene. So I don't really know too much about that. You know, that's not really what we get into here on this channel. It's a little bit more geared towards like Western ceremonial magic. So the Kabbalistic cross, and I've talked about my advanced version of the Kabbalistic cross. I actually have done a video on that. If you go, should be pretty far back in my ceremonial magic video. If you go to the playlist for ceremonial magic, you should be able to find a video where I talk about the advanced Kabbalistic cross and middle pillar, I believe it is. So stand facing east. And of course, for me, I've changed my directions up a little bit, but if I'm banishing, I will face east. So this would still apply to if I were to do an LBRP. Stand and face east. Imagine a brilliant white light touching the top of your head. Reach up with the index finger or blade of a dagger to connect with the light and bring it down to the forehead. So for me, before I even get to this point in the Kabbalistic cross, because this is really, it's just really vague. It just says a white light above your head. And, you know, oftentimes you're going to assume that's Kether, right? So for me, when I'm doing the Kabbalistic cross, before I do the Kabbalistic cross, I do the relaxation ritual. So I will actually, you know, sit in a chair or like on my bed or something, you know, with my legs down in like this type of position, and just close my eyes and envision, you know, the white light moving up through the body, everything kind of relaxing, you know, the nervous system getting real calm. And then that way your body's totally relaxed and you can completely get into that zone, you know, that you need to get into for the Kabbalistic cross. And from there, you know, I will envision myself growing larger and larger and larger above the earth. And then I go through the planets. So Moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun above the sun, Mars above Jupiter, Saturn, and then the constellations, and then moving up through the Sephiroth, or, Yesod, the astral plane, and then up through Hod, so the sphere of intellect, and then through Netzach, the sphere of emotion. That's where the Fae are said to reside. So it's a very, I often envision kind of almost like a mystical forest kind of dimension, if you will. It's not quite literally like that, but it's just, think art and creativity. It's all of those archetypal things. As you're moving up the tree, Tiphereth, so that's the solar god energy, and then you move up to Mars, which is the fire type energy, and Geburah, moving over to Hesed, mercy, which is that Jupiter type energy, abundance. Since Hesed is symbolized by the color blue, I'll often envision a lot of blue when I'm seeing that. So you've got Geburah, the severity, and then the blue of almost the water of a yin and yang type energy going on there. And then moving up across the abyss, or Da'a, and then seeing Baina and Hokmah, Zafkael and Raziel, and the pillars. So the white pillar on your left, in front of you on the left, and then the black pillar on your right as you're looking at that. And they get into that whole pillar thing in this book about how you should be visualizing the pillars. And both me and Jeremiah from Universal Mastery say the same thing. It's, you should be seeing the white pillar on your left side, and the black pillar should be on your right side. So, and they teach that in one of the Kabbalah books. I forget which one it is, but it's usually the pillars are reversed, though, and that's actually kind of the messed up orientation of it. Well, that's kind of an advanced discussion. I won't quite get into that in this video. I will have to find where it is in this book that they talk about that. I think it's much earlier in the book. But anyway, I'm still talking about my version of the Kabbalistic cross. So once you get up to Hokmah and Baina, and then Kether, and then even beyond Kether, there is the Ein Sof Or, which is the limitless light. And I see that being kind of emanated from a divine dragon. Curtis Joseph also often describe, the scales of the great dragon. I see that as the Ein Sof, the limitless all. And then from that, the dragon is emanating from the Ein. And the Ein is the no thing, but more accurately, it's the infinite potentiality, which is unyet manifested, but it's before all creation. So it's like outside of creation, but creation also issues forth from it. And it's just the smallest fraction of that Ein encompasses everything that's ever existed thus far. So just a small sliver of that Ein. So when I do the Kabbalistic cross, for me personally, I'm not just reaching, up to Kether. I'm reaching even beyond that to the ultimate source of creation. And that way I'm having that ultimate connection, and I'm trying to connect, because between where we are and where ultimate source is, there's all these different planes of existence. There's all these different deities or gods, lowercase gods, goddesses. But, beyond that is ultimate source. And that is what I attempt to connect with, which is ultimately, our own highest self. So that's how I do the Kabbalistic cross. I imagine the brilliant white light. I still imagine it as a brilliant white light coming down. But I almost see it as my fraction of infinity that is meant for me, thy kingdom come, which is actually a variation of my kingdom come. It says somewhere in here. So you could see that, seeing yourself as the source, my kingdom come, thy will be done. So imagine a brilliant white light touching the top of your head. Reach up with the index finger or blade of a dagger to connect with the light and bring it down to the forehead. Usually you don't want to use just the index finger. You also want to use your middle finger too. So you would use both together like that to bring the light down. Touch the forehead and vibrate. Alto, thou art. It says there's a footnote for that too. Atah is the more correct Hebrew pronunciation of this word than the traditional pronunciation of Ato, used by magicians in the past. Interesting. I've always said Atah. Touch the breast and bring the dagger, blade, or index finger down until it covers the heart or abdominal area, pointing down to the ground. Yeah, I usually bring it, I'll go like, all tall. And then you go all the way down to the floor. And it's Malkun. Obviously, I'm not vibrating that to the full effect right now because it's quite loud when I do that. It's going to be much different in the moment, when you're doing it in your ceremony. When you do this, imagine the light descending from the forehead to the feet. So there's a bright light that just emanates down. You are the axis point. You will become the Qabalistic cross. You are the dot in the center. You are the origin point. It's the spiritual and the physical united. Imagine the light descending from the forehead to the feet. Vibrate Malkuth. So Atal, Malkuth. Touch the right shoulder and visualize a point of light there. Vibrate Vigabura, which actually is Gabura. On the tree of life, power or severity, the power. Touch the left shoulder and visualize a point of light there. See the horizontal shaft of light extending from the opposite shoulder. To join this point of light, vibrate Vegadula, the glory, which is another name for Hesed. Hesed or glory, abundance. Gedula. So remember, and it talks about the church actually doing it the opposite. And I noticed that when I was a kid too. Usually you'll go up, down, left, right, but in ceremonial magic, it's up, down, right, left. Because when you touch your right shoulder, that's corresponding to Gebura. When you're touching your left shoulder, that's corresponding to Hesed or mercy. Imagine a completed cross of light running from head to feet and shoulder to shoulder. Bring the hands outward, away from the body, and finally bring them together again, clasped on the breast as if praying or interlocking the fingers. Vibrate Leolam, Amen, which means forever unto the ages. I do like that. That is pretty. So I'll go ahead and try to attempt to show you all together. So reach up, you come down, all tall, down, Malkum, Vigmuro, Vigdulo, And you'll notice, even from just doing that simple exercise, you don't even have to do the whole, lesser ritual of the pentagram. You can just do that in and of itself. And that is going to have quite a profound effect, will help bring about some clarity, balance, all of those sorts of things. It's a quick but effective practice you can do, and very powerful. So now moving on to the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram itself. Stand and face east. Let's see what the footnote has to say here. For the Qabalistic cross, the magician may choose to stand either in the eastern part of the room or in the center of the room facing east. For the drawing of the first pentagram, however, the magician should walk to the eastern part of the room and move to the southern, western, and northern portion of the temple as required for the tracing of the pentagrams. For the invocation of the archangels and the final Qabalistic cross, the magician can again move to the center of the room. If the temple space is very small, the magician can simply stand in the center of the room throughout and turn towards the quarters to trace the pentagram. So yeah, you know, typically you're going to want to like stand in the center, and then you can actually walk to each, like towards each direction. And then at the end, you can come back to the middle. Now, if you're in a really small space, you can just turn around, you know. And for me, I've talked about this before. If I'm doing banishing, I'll start in the east and then I'll move around. I changed the elements up a bit though. So east is fire. And then I move to the south, which is water. I'm sorry. Yeah. Then I move to the south, which is water. Then I move to the west, which is air. Then I move to the north, which is earth, and then back to the east. If I'm doing an invoking now, I'll face the west, and that's air. And then I still move the pentagram, or I move the circle in the same direction, the circle in the same direction. So I'll start in the west if I'm invoking, move to the north. So I'm moving to the right. Moving to the north for earth, moving to the east for fire, moving to the south for water, and then moving back to the west again. So when it comes to invoking. And I always wondered if for banishing would actually be better to go counterclockwise. And the only reason I say that, you know, normally the reason they have you go clockwise and start in the east is because you're starting with the rising of the sun, and you're also following the seasons too. When you go that way, you're going spring, summer, fall, winter. You're doing it in order like that. So there's different reasons for doing it the traditional way. I can see why people would do it the traditional way. You know, I should really do a whole video just on the symbolic explanations of why I do it the way I do now, and why people do it the traditional way, which is following the seasons. And it's also following, if you do it clockwise, you're following the phases of the sun. So the sun rises in the east, and then it hits high noon, and then it sets, and then it's nighttime. So you're following that daily cycle if you start in the east. So it does really make sense to start in the east, you know. But I see the east more as the direction of fire and initiation, and the west is more kind of the place where it's kind of almost the place of peace, where the energy retires. It's like the elves retiring into the west. So if you're looking to go through the fires of initiation, you do want to work with the east. That's where a lot of the power is going to come from. It just depends on you know, what energies it is you're trying to work with, and which elements, I guess, you're trying to work with more. So for me, instead of trying to invoke a whole bunch of fire type energies, will start invoking from the west now, instead of invoking from the east, and I will do my banishings in the east. So it's been a while since I've tried the traditional directions, actually. So all of these things, you know, these little nuances, I don't think there's any really right or wrong way to do these things. So I recommend that people experiment with different things, try different things, and see what works for you at the end of the day, obviously. Okay. So for banishing, stand and face the east, perform the Qabalistic cross as described above, which we just went over. Still facing east, use a dagger or the index finger of the right hand to trace a large lesser banishing pentagram, which is technically a banishing earth pentagram, because you're moving the pentagram, you're pushing it away from earth up towards spirit, so you're actually sending the energy back to source. Thrust the dagger tip or index finger through the center of the pentagram and vibrate YHVH, Yod He Va He, the tetragrammaton. And then it says see glossary, so there might actually be, yeah, there's probably a definition for Yod He Va He. And it's one of the sacred names of God, which is, you know, revealed in lots of different you know, literature nowadays, and has connections with Freemasonry. And that was another interesting thing that this girl that I was talking about earlier, her material that I was talking about earlier in this video, she talks about the Yod He Va He wormhole, and that it's actually like another false, like a fallen system or a false system. So it's like, I don't know, it's really strange. There are a lot of different spiritual people I've talked to who think that the ceremonial magic stuff is actually like, they think that it's actually corrupt, or that it's actually, how do I want to put it? There's another word for, not, rather than just corrupt, but that it's been not just watered down, but basically it's a false system, a perverted system. I think that was one of the ways they had mentioned it. And I mean, maybe some of these systems of magic are a little bit more archonic than other types of things. Maybe there are like more organic types of magic, quote unquote. Maybe, you know, at the end of the day, it's hard to know exactly what energies you're working with, and there are trickster energies out there. So you really have to use your own discernment and always stay grounded, and just you have to master your mind so that it's so that you're not basically being overtaken by those doubts and those things. So once you're on your spiritual path, you know, just use discernment and try and decide what works best for you. So, oh yeah, I was going to read the YHVH definition. Four letters which stand for the highest Hebrew name for God. Yeah, so I think it's actually the name that was revealed to Moses at the burning bush. That was Eheye, which is also one of the sacred God names. But Yod-He-Vav-He, it's considered unknown and unpronounceable, often referred to as the Tetragrammaton. So it's the four letters are archetypal masculinity, is what Donald Michael Craig says in Modern Magic. The first Yod is archetypal masculine, He is archetypal feminine, Yod-He-Vav, Vow is physical masculinity, and then the second He is physical femininity type energy. So you're getting the whole understanding, or the whole completion of archetypes within that God name. So it's the spiritual and physical components of masculine, and the spiritual and physical components of the feminine. Interesting. Yod-He-Vav-He, or YHVH Elohim, is the divine Hebrew name of Binah, meaning the Lord God, associated with Da in the exercise of the middle pillar. Yep, because you vibrate Yod-He-Vav-He Elohim. Exactly. So, all right, everyone, that's actually just a very, and that's one of the things I like to do with my videos, is I like to go through material, but then I also like to add a whole bunch of my own input and things, because I like to give you guys alternative things to think about and alternative ways of looking at this information that maybe you haven't thought of before. So we did not get very far in this chapter. I read this page, which, as you can see, is not very much. And then we just got down to, yeah, we're right here, where it talks about the Tetragrammaton. So we only read like that little bit, and it's already been about 30 minutes, so I'm actually going to have to go ahead and wake up my son. So I just wanted to get this little video in real quick while I had some time. It is Thanksgiving today, so happy Thanksgiving, everyone. As you can see, I'm already out of my fancier clothes and into my comfy clothes, so I felt that it was time to do that since I've gotten back home. And I hope that you got some value from this video. So if you like this material, let me know in the comments. Give the video a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to be notified of more videos, ring the notification bell. And yeah, we just scratched the surface with some of this review material. So if you want me to cover more review and stuff, please let me know. And I hope you all are doing extremely well, and I will see you all very, very soon. So peace and blessings, everyone. Until next time.